When people hear the name Ron Artest, they don't think of his all-defensive teams. They don't think of his Defensive Player of the Year award win. They don't think of his 2010 NBA championship. They will think of his uncontrolled temper, his mindset that he could fight any moment. However, today I would like to take a look at the career of Ron Artest, aka Metta World Peace, and see how good he was actually. Ron would play 2 years at St. John's University in college basketball. He would average over 13 points, 6 rebounds, and 2 assists in 69 games and would start 49 of them. St. John's would enter the NCAA tournament twice, both in Ron's 2 seasons there. In 1998, they would lose in round 1. However, they would come back in 1999 and make it all the way to the South Regional Finals, where they would lose to Ohio State. After those 2 years, Ron Artest would declare for the 1999 NBA draft, where he would be selected 16th overall by the Chicago Bulls, dropping a little bit lower than some mock drafts had him. Ron Artest was thrusted into a very good situation. He was drafted into a rebuilding Chicago Bulls team who had just lost Michael Jordan in the offseason of 1998 to retirement. He played just over 2 seasons with the Bulls, and to say they had minimal success was a little bit of an understatement. Ron was a really good player though, averaging double-digit points per game both seasons he played with the Bulls. He would also make the All-Rookie second team in 2000. However, his potential didn't matter. The Bulls would send Ron Artest to Indiana in a very large trade. This would prove to be a great scenario for the young Artest. He was sent to a franchise like the Pacers, who had just made the finals 2 seasons earlier, however had playoff struggles in 2001, once they hired Isaiah Thomas as their head coach. They also needed to urgently build around a 36-year-old Reggie Miller and try to make a run at an NBA championship while he still had time on the hardwood. However, Ron wasn't alone on the Indiana Pacers. In the 2000 offseason, they would trade Dale Davis to the Portland Trailblazers for Jermaine O'Neal. Jermaine was rarely given minutes on the Blazers, and a change of scenery really helped. He blossomed into a great rim protector, scorer, and rebounder, and adding Ron to that defensive presence would be elite. Between the years 2002 and 2004, Ron Artest would average 17 points, 5 rebounds, and 2 steals, and the Pacers would make the playoffs twice. In Indiana, Ron became a great ball handler and even more elite as a defender. Ron Artest would make the first All-Star game of his entire NBA career, and would also win the 2004 Defensive Player of the Year. The Pacers had large success due to their amazing defensive presence, along with a coaching change, going from Isaiah Thomas to Rick Carlisle. They would win 61 games and cruise all the way to the Eastern Conference Finals against the Detroit Pistons, battle of 2 of the best 3 defenses in the NBA. However, despite all-time great defensive games by both teams, the Pacers would lose in 6. In the 2004 NBA offseason, Ron Artest would ditch the number 23 in favor of the iconic number 91. In fact, I even have that jersey. However, it wasn't his jersey change that would take headlines. It was something that happened in Detroit in November of 2004 that would shape his career forever. Ron Artest would start the 2004-05 season by dropping 31 on Cleveland, and 2 days later he would drop 28 in Boston. It was looking like Ron Artest was working on his offensive game, and people were wondering if he could become as much of an offensive threat as he was a defensive one. However, that would all change whenever the Pacers would head to Detroit on November 19th of 2004, when Ron Artest would get involved in a fight that led all the way into the stands once a drink was thrown at him. For this action, Ron Artest was immediately suspended for the remainder of the season, including the postseason, and that total led all the way up to 86, this being the largest suspension ever given out in NBA history to this day. Ron Artest would switch back to the number 15 and would play just 16 more games in a Pacers uniform before he would demand a trade out of Indiana and would be dealt to the Sacramento Kings for 3-point shooter Peja Stojakovic. Post-trade, Jermaine O'Neal was quoted as saying, "We felt a little betrayed and a little disrespected." He was mad that Ron Artest pretty much played the biggest role in destroying that 2004-05 Pacers team and would just leave afterwards as if nothing happened. Ron Artest would play 2.5 years with the Sacramento Kings, where he would average 19 points and 6 rebounds and would maintain a good defensive reputation, despite having a questionable reputation as a person. After only 2 playoff wins in 3 seasons, Ron Artest would be dealt to the Houston Rockets. He was 29 years old and was the 3rd member of a Houston Rockets Big 3 that could maybe do some serious damage in the playoffs. However, Tracy McGrady would only play 35 games due to injury, and Yao Ming would have a bit of a down year for his standards, leading to Ron Artest playing the main role as the main contributor on the offense. However, after performing below his standards in the 2009 NBA playoffs, he would not be re-signed by the Houston Rockets. Ron Artest would sign with the LA Lakers. Now, this raised a lot of question marks due to Ron Artest having a very heavy temper. Meanwhile, Kobe Bryant was a very no-nonsense type of guy. The question was, could Ron Artest put his temper aside to win basketball games? And they actually would. He would bring physicality to a Lakers team who really needed it, and despite losing some of his athleticism, he was still good defensively, along with having several clutch moments when it mattered most. In 2010, the Los Angeles Lakers would win their 2nd straight NBA title, beating the Boston Celtics. Ron would change his name to Metta World Peace in 2011 and would change his number back to number 15. Ron Artest, though, was not the same player he used to be. He wasn't as athletic, and he would end up not being re-signed by the Lakers. He would sign a 2-year deal with the Knicks before being waived, and would briefly play overseas before returning to the Lakers for 2 final years, one with Kobe and one without him. Ron Artest was a very unique guy. While on one hand he was a PR nightmare for his team, that's also kind of the reason we loved him as fans. He was the heart of a lot of his squads, along with bringing intensity that not a whole lot of other players could. Ron Artest was very similar to players like Ben Wallace and Dennis Rodman in the way that they didn't take anything from anybody. As of right now, Ron Artest is not in the Hall of Fame. However, there's an argument to be made he should be. Along with that, he also should be in the conversation for top 15 defender of all time. For several years, Ron Artest was the best two-way player in the entire NBA. And that's going to do it for today's video. If you guys enjoyed this video, I would really appreciate your like, comment, subscribe, share. Thank you for 500 subscribers. And with that, I will see you all in the next video. Goodbye.